The lab smells like vinegar and burnt coal, and your hands are shaking so badly you've knocked over the third beaker this morning. Outside the window, Elberfeld is gray and wet, the factory chimney pumping smoke into a November sky, and somewhere down the hall your supervisor is waiting for results you don't have. You have 36 hours before the board meeting. You have 2 compounds on your bench, and you have absolutely no idea which one is going to save you and which one is going to end everything. You are Heinrich Dreser. It is 1897, and you are about to make the 2 most consequential mistakes in the history of medicine. The first compound came from Felix Hoffmann, a junior chemist 2 floors below you who synthesized it 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday afternoon and left the notes on your desk without ceremony, the way people leave umbrellas. Acetyl salicylic acid. A stabilized version of something herbalists had been pulling from willow bark for centuries. Hoffmann made it cleaner, more consistent, gentler on the stomach. He was proud of it. You looked at the notes, looked at the compound, and set it aside. Too simple, too obvious. No drama in it. The second compound is the one you care about, diacetyl morphine. You've been working it for 6 months, refining the acetylation, chasing the thing that every morphine researcher is chasing. The holy grail of 19th century pharmacology. A painkiller that works like morphine but doesn't hook the patient. Something you can give to a child with a cough. Something that doesn't turn a wounded soldier into a man who will trade his house for the needle. You think you found it. You think the diacetyl morphine is different. You think this because you want to think it, which is the first of your mistakes. But you won't understand that for another 15 years. The self-trials begin on a Thursday. You and 3 colleagues, small doses, careful notes. The sensation is immediate and total. A warmth that starts in the chest and spreads outward like you've swallowed a sunrise. You feel invincible. You feel, and here's the word that keeps appearing in your notes, heroish. Heroic. The kind of feeling that makes a man want to climb a mountain or write a symphony or tell his supervisor to go to hell. Your colleagues report the same thing. The word appears again and again. Heroish. You name it accordingly. The board meeting is in 36 hours, and you walk in with 2 compounds. You pitch diacetyl morphine first, and you pitch it hard. The trials, the sensation, the breathlessness it cured, the coughs it suppressed, the fact that unlike morphine, it seems. You use the word seems, but only because someone might notice if you don't. To produce less dependency. You've run the trials for 3 weeks. Morphine dependency takes months to develop. You know this. You don't say it. They love it. The word heroish is already doing the work. By the end of the month, you'll have a trade name, heroin. The marketing writes itself. Then someone asks about the other one. The acetyl salicylic acid, the plain thing Hoffmann left on your desk. You almost wave it away. But you need a second product in the pipeline, and the board is in a generous mood, and so you describe it in the most damning terms possible. Mild, you say. Gentle. Safe as aspirin. Meaning, in the parlance of the time, safe as a tonic. Safe as something that doesn't quite work. You present it as the conservative option for people who don't need real medicine. The backup. The thing for headaches. You call it aspirin. After the Latin spirea, the plant. A small word for a small ambition. Both products ship in 1899. Heroin goes first, goes wide, goes fast. Bayer exports it to 26 countries. Physicians prescribe it for tuberculosis, for coughs, for morphine addiction. The perfect irony assembling itself in slow motion, invisible to everyone involved. You prescribe heroin to cure morphine dependency the way you'd prescribe fire to cure smoke. The letters start arriving in 1902, not to you, to the medical journals, to the hospital administrators, to the pharmacies. At first they're careful, clinical, the way doctors write when they're not sure who's reading. Patients displaying unusual attachment to the compound. Difficulty discontinuing use. A soldier in Hamburg who sold his uniform. You read the letters and you feel something that isn't quite fear and isn't quite guilt. It's closer to the sensation of watching a wagon wheel come loose on a downhill road and knowing you were the one who tightened the bolts. You write a response for the journal. You cite the 3-week trials. You note the sample size limitations. You do not mention that you knew dependency takes months. You do not mention the word heroish, which is still appearing in the letters, but in a different context now, describing what patients feel the moment before they realize they cannot stop. Meanwhile, aspirin is being prescribed, quietly, without drama. Physicians in Munich are giving it for fever. A physician in London tries it on a patient with a heart condition. The blood-thinning effect is accidental, unexpected, noted in a journal nobody reads yet. A woman in Vienna takes it for rheumatic pain and writes to her doctor that it's the first week in 4 years she's been able to hold a fork properly. These letters go into files. Nobody sends them to Bayer. Nobody names them. You are not reading those letters anyway. You are watching the other situation develop. By 1910, the word addiction has replaced attachment in the medical literature, and the word heroin appears in that sentence more often than any other compound name. St. James Infirmary in New York has a ward. There are wards in Hamburg, in London, in Calcutta. Bayer discontinues the product in 1913, quietly, the way you close a window when it starts to rain. Not an announcement, just a motion, completed before anyone notices. You retire in 1914 with your royalties. You negotiated a percentage, which makes you either admirably shrewd or specifically monstrous, depending on which year you're asking. And you move to a house on the Rhine with a garden and a view of the water. You are 61 years old. You have made, in today's terms, the equivalent of roughly $40 million from a drug that, by conservative estimate, has destroyed the lives of somewhere between 50 and 200 million people across the following century. You sit in the garden. The river moves. You don't think about it, or you think about it constantly. The historical record doesn't say. What the historical record does say is this. In 1948, 31 years after your death, an American physician named Lawrence Craven reads the notes from the London trial, the one with the heart patient, the blood thinning, the fork, and begins prescribing low-dose aspirin to prevent heart attacks. Over the following decades, clinical trial after clinical trial confirms it. By 2020, aspirin will have saved an estimated 1 million lives per year through cardiovascular prevention alone. Over the century, the number is not calculable. It is somewhere between enormous and incalculable, filed under accidents of science. The drug you dismissed as mild. The drug you described as something for people who didn't need real medicine. The thing Hoffman made on a Tuesday and left on your desk without ceremony. That one turned out to be the miracle. The other one, the heroish one, the triumph. The product you staked your reputation on, that one carved a wound through the century that still hasn't closed. There is a lesson here, but the story doesn't owe you one. What it owes you is the image. A man in a garden on the Rhine, watching water move, with 40 million reasons to feel like he won and 200 million reasons to know he didn't. And somewhere in a filing cabinet in a London hospital, a letter from a woman in Vienna who can hold a fork again and doesn't know your name and never will. Drop a comment. If you were Dreser in that board meeting, which compound do you pitch first? Or do you walk out the door entirely?